how many of you have a child or a grandchild or niece or nephew on the spectrum? Okay. And then how many of you are professionals from outside the Center for Autism? Cool, wow. Can I just have you just go around real quickly and say, for the professionals, where you guys work?
My name is Michelle, and I work through the Even Start program in Baltimore County Public Schools.
My name is Lindsay, and I also work for Even Start.
I'm Anna, and I work for Anne Arundel County Public Schools.
I'm Sinead, and I'm one of the child life specialists at the 801 building on the Broadway campus.
Same here, I'm Anna, and I work in the child life program.
You know, I feel a little bad. I mean, I didn't mean to exclude the family members, so let's just do this sort of all proper here. So I missed you.
I'm a grandparent.
A grandparent. And you can feel free to say your first name if you want to. It's up to you. Carol?
I'm Cynthia.
Okay.
I'm Jamie, and I'm with the Anne Arundel County Child Life program.
Linda Lilly, psychologist, retired, taking my license.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm Shannon, I'm the autism specialist for Howard County.
I'm Shannon, also in our Michael School Officer.
Hi, I'm Peggy from Baltimore County, Northwest Infants and Toddlers.
I'm Brian from also from Northwest Infants and Toddlers.
Johnson, I work here.
And my staff, feel free to say who you are too, just so everybody really gets to know people more.
I'm Betsy, and I'm the early childhood specialist at Fort Discovery, and we have a program with Klaus.
With Card. Klaus is the embodiment of us. Do we have with you?
My name is Massey. I'm the education coordinator, mental health coordinator, and disability coordinator for marketing.
I'm Liz, and I work here as well.
My name is Julia. I'm the counselor for child.
I'm Terry, I work in Southeast area.
I'm Elsie. I work in the cyber service lab with Krieger, and I'm a grandparent with family nurses.
Phil, and I work here.
I'm Kristen, I work here.
I'm Sarah.
I'm June, and I also work here.
Sarah, and I work with myself.
Julie, I work here. I'm Sai, I work here.
I'm Debbie, and I work with the dog.
And go ahead.
I'm Liz, I work here.
And I'm Stacy, and I work here as well.
And
I'm Katie, and I also work
okay. So we have a really nice mixed group here today. So, I mean, we're here to talk about something that's super, super important for the parents and grandparents in the room. Let me just get a sense for, you know, what, in terms of play, now some of the grandkids and the kids might be older. So if they are, you can sort of go back in time, because I'm really not going to be focusing on teenagers today. I'm really focusing on the younger kids. So for your granddaughter or grandson, what were some, it was a little girl, what were some of her favorite things to do?
She lives in New Zealand.
She lives in New Zealand, so not really sure.
I have limited contact.
Okay, all right.
My child is actually interested in all electronics and is more motivated with cars, and experience cars.
Okay, cars,
Anything that is a little bit of my experience.
years, electronics. Okay.
My grandson's 5, and he loves to draw. He loves art. It's pretty much the same thing all the time when he draws. Different versions of it, or sometimes the pictures are pretty much the same. But yeah, the art is the same.
All right. Music. Anybody else?
Yes. And my son is 6 years old, and my son.
Likes to jump. Moving around. Okay, excellent. All right, anybody else? Okay. That's very helpful. Okay, so, what is play? Who wants to throw their hand up and just throw out, let's get 5 or 6 comments about what play is in your mind. Yeah.
Imagination.
Imagination.
Have fun.
To have fun.
Unstructured time.
Unstructured time.
It's the way our children learn cognitively, by
Right.
using their hands and their senses.
Okay, learning through our hands and senses. Okay, now how do we put all those ideas together? You know, why am I giving this talk today? I mean, why are we talking about getting the most out of play? What do we want out of it? And I think that, you know, that's kind of the million-dollar question. So I looked up the definition of play, and this is what the definition on the internet said. Engage in activity for enjoyment and recreation rather than a serious or practical purpose. So, you know, from whose perspective? Because for a child, what do they do in their little lives? They're doing something all the time that they're awake. And that something that they're doing really matters. And so it's kind of serious to them. So I think we have some perspective-taking things that we need to resolve. So that's why I have the You know, I don't know, anybody here who works for me knows that is one of my most common comments. Because, you know, there are a lot of these things we need to really think about. So somebody said play is a child's way of learning about the world. It's his work. So all through the day, children are practicing something, okay? So, what are they practicing? So this young man, who I'll admit is my son, is playing baseball. He was a pitcher for University of Maryland, and he was really good. But he didn't get this way by accident. He started with baseballs when he was 2. And so he needed, to develop this expertise, he needed guided practice. And so when you're playing with your child or your grandchild, you are guiding the child's practice. Now, not all practice leads to the kind of expertise we want. And the kinds of expertise that your children develop or your grandchildren are developing, we appreciate it, we honor it, of what's flowing out of them naturally, because these are their natural talents. We don't want to not let those things bud, but we want to guide them and shape them so that the child can have a fulfilling and productive adulthood. A fulfilling and productive adulthood starts in infancy. You might say, well, it starts in utero. I'm not an expert in that, but I am an expert in infancy, and so, you know, I'm going to take it from where my territory is the most sound. Now, when your child or grandchild or your client is going through the day, as I said, the child is experiencing, is touching, is looking, is thinking something, and everything that the child experiences actually shapes the next experience, the next cognition, the next action, and each of these things shapes the developmental landscape for this child. So we actually sort of have the authority and the responsibility to get in the game with the child, okay? So play and playfulness. Let's just talk about play for a minute. Play is for learning from the child's perspective and from an education perspective, okay? Play is for recreation. These things are not incompatible. If we don't jump in, because we're talking about autism here, if we don't jump in and help the child contour his experiences, then his recreational options will be quite limited. And if the child's recreational options are limited, that means socially he's restricted because he can't join in with what other kids are doing. Now, that's not going to make him a happy camper. Play is for engaging and developing relationships. because play is kind of your badge. Think about it. If you're in the classroom and you're over there building blocks, and that's the center you like to go to, you kind of get known as the block expert. If you're in the classroom and you're one who likes to do the books, you kind of get known as the book expert. Kids who want to do that, they gravitate over there. We want kids to have the flexibility to be a minor block expert along with their book expertness, okay? And so we want to give kids more options. Motivation is important, and the rewarding piece of play is going to involve something that's going to motivate this child. So I don't see how we can play without some playfulness. And somebody said play is fun. Well, it needs to be fun, but it can't always be fun if you have autism, because when these kids are learning to play, it is hard work. And hard work makes you sweat. And if you're working hard and you have autism, your form of sweating can be anxiety, it can be frustration, and it can be a meltdown. We want to avoid the meltdowns as much as possible by carefully planning our play. So now, if you're a mom, a kid, and you're a therapist or a mom or a grandmom or a granddad, by the way, where are the dads? They're all otherwise occupied right now, right? Where's your agenda? Are you in the moment with this child? Are you 2 steps ahead so you know what you're doing right now, but in your little working memory bubble is what you're going to do when he does this or she does that? Or are you 2 steps behind? So the child is doing this, this, and this, and you're in your head like, oh my gosh, I do not know what to do now. Okay? Is it on your agenda to be teaching? Is it on your agenda just to engage, just to have a moment with this child? Is it on your agenda just to relax? I mean, we all know, if anybody in this room is a parent or a grandparent, you know there are times you are playing with your child while you're laying on that floor, just trying to keep those eyes open, right? But you're there, the kid can climb on you, whatever, but you are playing with the child. Are you regulating? We know sometimes when you're playing with a child with autism, your biggest agenda is just to keep them regulated, because they have a lot of trouble doing that from within. Now, if you're the child, I can guarantee you 100% you're in the moment. You're not strategizing what you're going to do with this. You're not scanning the environment saying, that toy over there, I think that goes with this. You're not doing that. You're not trying to read the other person's mind. You're just doing what's coming naturally to you. And you're making it rewarding for yourself. Okay, if you're the kid, that's your agenda. I'm here to get the max of enjoyment out of what I'm doing. Now, there are also individual differences in play partners. There tend to be gender differences. Those of you who do a lot of parent coaching know that when you coach a mom, characteristically, the mom's implementation of the strategy that you're teaching is going to take a different form than the dad's. I have worked with dads or granddads where I'm teaching a strategy and I say, okay, now let's see you do it. And they do it with the kid and I'm like, stop me silly. I would have never thought of that. That is so much fun. I wish I could take his brain and put it in my head. You know, there's just something about guys and the way they think about how to play that is super fun, and we women have a lot to learn from that. And if you're really good at that, I'm really jealous of you. But there is something about the way dads translate this information that is fun for kids, and not that moms aren't fun, but I just think that it's okay that we have these differences. Now, anything can be turned into play. So you can be playing with toys. Things that are part of the daily life routines and chores can certainly be turned into fun, although we're not naturally, as parents, super good about thinking about how to make that fun for our kids. We're kind of more, let's just get it done. We can certainly use natural props. So if we're outside, how do we turn that tree into a prop for play? How do we turn, the naturally things that are springing up out of the ground, the daffodils, the dandelions. What about books? A lot of times we underutilize books in our play, and sometimes it's just nothing. And here's a perfect example of what I was talking about dads in terms of just getting their teeth brushed. So what children are doing during play is they're figuring out what objects do. They're figuring out what objects are for. They are figuring out what objects can go with other objects, what objects are called, how to engage with others. They're developing an imagination, and they are whole time self-regulating. So if you look at this picture, I just think this is a really great example because in some ways it's an embodiment of a lot of these principles. So what's happening in these kids? Can you see what's happening here with these girls? What are they doing with their bodies? They're preparing for him to throw it, but look at the scene. What do you think is really happening here? There's more than preparation. So preparation is important because there's an anticipation. That means that they're reading his mind. They're knowing that his thought bubble is, I'm going to throw this ball to someone. How do they know that? Somebody who's not from my center tell me that.
Imagination. Engaging.
Engaging, but how do they already know what he's going to do?
Experience.
Past experience. There is a bit of a routine here, right? So they know that they have formed themselves in the circle. Nobody told them, okay, you stand here, you stand here, you stand here. Now, oh my gosh, look, we're in a circle. They already had a priori knowledge from observing other scenes like this, right? So this is a routine that has been established, and they have a mental script for it. I'm telling you this because when you play with kids, you have to create that for them. And remember that for kids with autism, most of the things that you're going to play with them are novel and they don't have an existing representation for it. So they're not going to be good play partners until you lay that down. You have to lay down that map in their head. But look at these girls. Not only are they anticipating, they're bidding. They're bidding, oh, pick me. They're communicating, whether they're talking or not. This one is, she's got a little mouth open. But this one here may not be. So somebody's going to be the lucky recipient of this. And there is a lot of regulation going on here. Nobody's running over and grabbing the ball out of his hands. He's not just, he is going to intentionally direct this ball to one of these kids. He's not going to throw it behind him. There is a rule set governing this play activity. Now, so when we think about play, let's think about interlocking rings. We're going to think about concept and language development, communication, and social development. All of the whole mind is available for development through play. Now, I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you, right now, you're a kid, and I want you to actually reach out and take this object. Let me see you do it. Okay, stop. Look around you. Okay? Now, put your hand down. Reach out and grasp this object. Stop. Look around you. What is the difference between your position or your behavior now and a minute ago? Okay, your hand is in a different orientation. How did you know that? Because of your experience of reaching and grasping. So, this kind of intentional behavior starts in your infancy, mid-infancy. So babies develop a lot of experience with reaching and grasping to the point where they can actually reach and grasp stuff in the dark with the right hand orientation. Okay? You can too, and you do it all the time. Okay? Now, I want you to use this object. Okay, nobody's doing anything. Okay, use this object. Okay, great. How did you know what to do with this object? Experience. You've used it. You didn't always know what to do with it. To a young child with autism, using this is as hard as it was for you to use this. They don't have a representation for it. So through play, that's how they're gonna know what to do with this thing. Now, we as adults make a lot of presumptions about kids. So let's pretend like we're an interventionist or we're a parent and we're gonna play with this child. 99.9% of the time, we pitch our play too hard for the kid. No wonder the child doesn't want to play with us, okay? Because we have a bad theory of mind. We already have a theory of mind that the child knows what to do with the object. They even know how to orient their hand to pick it up. Because one of the things that play requires is the use of the body. And one of the things the one thing that we can control in our body is our muscles. But our muscles knowing how to move when we go for an object is going to depend on a lot of factors. Okay, now I want to take this one step further in terms of what children actually see in the world. So what do you see here? Somebody who hasn't heard me say this. A cloud, okay? What do you see?
A cloud with a bunny.
A bunny. What do you see? A bunny. Not a typical prototypical bunny. What's that? A bunny. Everyone's sure that's a bunny. But look at all the different kinds of bunnies, okay? So, this is what kids have to do. To them, in the beginning, bunnies are that amorphous. So they need to learn bunniness, and how bunniness is different from catness, and how catness is even different from a bowl. Because there's agency, things that do stuff, they eat, they drink, there are certain features of these animate things that are different than inanimate things, and that's a big thing kids need to learn. So I'm actually going to kind of skip a few things here, just to go into a few things about play levels so we can spend the rest of the time talking about how to play. So this is from Karen Lifter's work, and I'm just, she has lots of sub-levels to this stuff, so I'm just going to make it super simple and talk about play levels. So one of the first things that kids do when they reach and grasp objects is they do indiscriminate acts with it. So the kinds of things that infants do with objects is they mouth and bite, they bang, they transfer from hand to hand, they drop, but it's kind of indiscriminate. And they would do that with a hairbrush, they would do it with a block, they would do it with a ball. It doesn't matter what you give them, the action repertoire is the same. Then they move into discriminate actions that's like, oh, balls roll. So when they get the ball, they roll it. When they see a car, they push it. When they see a rattle, they shake it. So, they're not shaking the cars, they're not shaking the ball, they're doing these things. Now, the next thing that happens is that kids take stuff apart. They take stuff out of stuff. And then the next thing they do, they start to put stuff in and on. So that's functional play. So if you look at the Fisher-Price baby toys, they're designed for this. They have containment, so you can put stuff in them, you can put stuff on them, you can take stuff out of them. That's what they're for. So now that you're starting to put stuff in, you're starting to stack stuff, that's called functional play. Then you actually start to use stuff on your own body, if you're a kid. So that means that you take a little plastic fork and you put it up to your own mouth. You're not feeding the toy bunny rabbit, you're just feeding yourself. You might put a phone to your own ear. And then the next thing that you do is that you start doing it to the dolls. The next thing that you do is you start to combine stuff. Now, think about this, guys. We really push kids too fast when we're doing play. So he's just now learning that the spoon goes in the bowl, or that the plastic food goes on the plate, or that that the pillow goes on the bed. These are important relationships that are just emerging now. This all happens before pretending starts to happen, before symbolism starts to happen. So when symbolic play starts to emerge, what you're going to see is the first thing kids do, and sometimes this phase of development can go like that in a child with typical development. You miss a day, you miss the whole stage, okay? And that is where they'll feed one doll, and then feed another doll, and then feed another doll. What does that tell you about the child's cognition? It's a huge milestone. Just curious what you think that might tell you. Generalization. This is so big. When you see a kid do this, that they're not just feeding this doll during this play activity. This is why you need to set it up so that the next stage can be formed. Okay, so when you're starting to do this play where the kid might be feeding the doll, you need to have several of them. Okay? Because you want them to feed this one and this one and this one. You want them to get them all. Oh my gosh, the kid's like, oh my gosh, they all have mouths. You know, oh my gosh, that I can do the same action on all of you. That's a huge epiphany. Okay, and so the other thing that's starting to happen is there's a little bit of planning starting to go on. They're starting to develop multiple sequences, but they don't. It's not so much of a cognitive load. So they're just going to do the same thing, but the dolls are different. Okay. But now, the next thing that happens is we start to get substitutions. So now, the kid might use a bowl for a hat. He might use a block as a cookie. The next thing that starts to happen is the kid might actually do stuff like eating when there's no food. He might pretend like that, or put his hand up to the doll's mouth, but there's no object. And then the next thing that happens in here, and could all be sort of co-emerging, but is to actually make the doll do stuff on its own, give the doll agency. So to make the doll walk. Now when we play with kids, even when they're really developmentally young, we do that stuff. But we may maybe not expect them to do it back. So don't be upset if you're modeling it and the child's not responding in kind. It's okay. And then the child starts to do multi-scheme sequences, which a lot of us are already asking kids who are just at a discriminative level of play to do multi-scheme sequences. We're putting the people in the car, we're pushing the car, we go over here, we take the people out, then we start feeding the people. We just went to 30,000 feet in a split second. Okay, so the kids will get there. So in true symbolic play, as Piaget would say, kids are starting to begin to hold representations in their mind. This is a whole new aspect of development, and as this is happening, there's a big change in a lot of aspects of development. A big change in language development, a big change in memory, object permanence. There's a big change in understanding other people's intentionality. So there's a shift in social anticipation. There's actually a shift in imitation skills. So think about it. I've just talked about imitation, language, cognition, and play. So all of these things at the same time are all the switches going on for all of them. Now, if we advance one aspect of this unit that is supposed to all be coming online at the same time, but it's not, but we advance one piece of it into the next level, we might be able to pull the other stuff along. So that's why play is so important, because we know kids like to do it. Language is so abstract. So let's really build a firm foundation for language through play. So this is happening in between 18 and 24 months. And okay, now I just want to take a minute and tell you how we treat here. So what the early achievements and achievements for little learners and the achievements program here do, our early intervention programs, is that we talk about building a network of meaning for kids, because those networks do not exist for young kids with autism. We know that autism is a disorder of connectivity. The brain is not connecting itself well. And so that means we get some piecemeal information processing, which lends itself to repetitive behavior. So if we can help advance children's ability to understand the meaning of objects and how objects relate to each other and how their little body relates to objects and how their body relates to other people. Because all this is done through the body. Then we're helping this child develop a network of meaning. This is very different than a discrete trial experience. This is learning in situ. This is learning in real life context. So take these two ducks for a minute. Okay, why are ducks one of my preferred play activities or objects? Well, first of all, they're highly graspable. Second of all, the word duck is easy to say. Third of all, ducks are agents. They can do stuff. Okay, so you can do a lot of stuff to them. You can use them in almost every possible play scenario that you want to create, and most kids have one at home. So ducks for me it's like in every toy box. Most people think that ducks are innocuous, that they're basically useless, that they float in the bathtub. Oh, that's the best kept secret in the world. What's in a duck? So if you strategically pick your ducks, you can also enhance development in a lot of novel ways. So these ducks are different colors, but they're still ducks. Ducks are bouncy. You can hide them and find them. They can go for a ride in a truck. They can go in barns. They can eat. They can swim. They can get washed. And so look at just the words I have up here. You have a huge vocabulary building friend in a duck. So thinking about what are objects for, what you can do with them, what motivates the child to engage with this toy in the way that they do, what kind of connection do you make in your mind between this object and a similar one that you see over there, and what meaning does this hold for me? Now, before I go any further, I don't know if you need to get this on video or what, but I want to play a little game with you. And you don't have to talk, but I want you to answer this for yourself. Have you ever seen this before? Okay. Every early interventionist, I hope, I would like to argue, should have one of these. So what can you do with it? What's it for? Okay, put in. Take out. For counting. Okay, so we have 3 very good uses of this.
Open.
Open. Okay, now we're getting some language planning. Oh boy. Really exciting things are happening here. Colors. Now, if you have autism, what's the first thing you're going to want to do with it? Okay. Most battery-operated toys are probably, they're robbers. And so once the child activates that toy, guess what stops? Learning, communicating, engaging, and what starts? Repetitive behavior, dysregulation. And what are people buying? Battery-operated toys. iPads. So what first thing you want to do is take the batteries out. And not for all the time. There's times when the batteries are your friend, because that's the only way you can get this child to come to you. And if that's where the kid is, that's where you start. Okay, so we have this like friend right here. Okay, so then, you start thinking about, well, things that you can use with them. Okay, now ordinarily, you look at that and you're like, probably not going to use one of these. But in the beginning, when the child is at a combination stage of development, we can expand the play for this, right? Is the kid at a combinations level going to get it, that he's putting quote unquote food on a plate? No. As long as you know it, you're safe. If you don't know it, you're not safe. Because you could lead a kid into a tantrum. So I'm going to just let you think about this, and I want you to look at a couple of other things and just take note about what's in the Becky toolbox. This is what's in my toolbox. This. This. Think about what I'm showing you now. Because you're going to get tested on it. This. Couple more. Notice I'm not telling you. It says orange juice. Okay, two more things I gotta show you. Okay, there's a reason I did that. You're gonna know why in a minute. Oh, and by the way, can you see it? And in here, there's a variety of these kinds of things, including okay. Okay. So let's okay. So now I hope I've convinced you and given you some new insights into play. So now as you're starting to think about playing with a child, you are going to become more strategic. Okay? I don't care if you're a mom, you're a grandmom, you're an interventionist, or what you are, but you're going to start to think about what opportunities you're creating for the child just by the toys that you put out for the child. Right? So by choosing toys that give the child opportunities to do more than one thing, you're making it possible for him to make the next step in his own development. So think about your goals. Okay, you want this child to touch more than one object during this playtime. You want this child to start to use the pig in more than one way. So in the beginning, if you lay the pig out and you lay these on the floor next to the child, if the child is at the combinations level, what's he going to do with it? He's going to do that, right? So you want him to do more than that, though. But when you first give him the pig, if it's novel, or if he's really well practiced at this, and he's so well practiced at it that it feels really good, he doesn't want to do anything else with it because like this is a pattern that's firmly established, then your goal is to use the pig, but to use it in new ways. Okay, you're not going to get rid of the pig. So then you want him to start to use some objects together. Well, remember, if he's at a level of combinations play, are you going to do this in terms of using objects together? Not yet. So what you might want to do is then start laying these out. Now, what are these serving? What purpose are they serving now? The purpose that they're serving now is that they're a target for placement. So the new discovery is, I guarantee you this works, that you're sitting there and he's been doing this, and maybe now you've got him doing this, and you got him doing this. And this is all goal-worthy, believe me. Using the hand and all these different action schema movements is all goal-worthy. And now he sees these sitting down on the floor, and if he doesn't have the idea to do that, you can put one on there. And then he, guaranteed, is going to hit the target. He's either going to put it there or he's going to put it here. The day that he stops putting it on yours and puts it on a new one, is another advancement. Okay, so one of your goals is to get him to start using toys in new combinations, and then to use toys in engagement with others. So that for this pig at a combinations level, it might be that I take a turn, you take a turn, I take a turn, you take a turn, and create a game out of it. Then to use language with toys. So what language, for a child who's at an early language level, are you going to use here? What are your options? You have an idea.
Well, functional language.
Go ahead.
Press open.
Okay, open. In.
In or open.
What are your thoughts?
Can we do it with big stuff?
What's that?
And start with big.
Pig.
Yeah.
Okay, so we say open, what else we say? In and pig. Okay, guess what? We just gave this kid something incredibly important. We gave him a noun, a verb, and a preposition. Those three words are highly necessary in the early stages of language acquisition and are building a firm foundation for your pyramid. Okay, so those are great words, and they're also words that are high utility. He's going to use open all day long. He's going to use in all day long. Not going to use pig all day long. Doesn't matter, because pig is such a high, important word in this play activity that holds the position of nounness. That we want to build the whole concept of those things, right? And how they go with the verbs. So, and then eventually we're going to build symbolic thought and more concepts and what's pigness. So we're going to actually use that pig, and then we're going to use this pig. And we're going to get like 5 or 6 different pigs. And we're going to have all the pigs. And the little pig might go in the big pig. The little pig might go on the big pig. The little pig might go on the plate. The other thing that we want to do, talk about math, is this. Why is this a really great barn? There's a lot of reasons to buy this barn. Don't buy just any barn.
No lectures.
Social engagement. You can get right down while he's putting in, and he will, and you get eye contact, and believe me, they think that's hysterical. That is like such a fun thing. And then it's like a little peekaboo thing going on. And then, so this pig, and you want him to experience putting the pig in here, 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 but, not gonna go. Okay, that's big, big learning, okay? The other reason that I brought this one is because it's still part of the whole animal theme, but it requires another action schema. It makes them have to think about how to use their little bodies. And what's fun about it is that anything can go in here. The animals can go in, or the coins can go in, or blocks can go in. But then it's like they're gone. And then, they're not gone. You know, so this is a really great toy that can go with these things. And so we're building flexibility. So what I really love about all these kinds of toys and everything is just that we're building a flexible mind that neurobiologically loves rigidity. And so the more we can start to build that flexibility, that new cognitive style in a young child, helps them to break free a little bit from their natural tendencies. Are they ever going to be the most go-with-the-flow kid on the planet? Probably not. But that's not a problem. It's okay. So, you know what, we have 5 minutes left. I mean, I could teach this all day long, but I hope this was helpful. And so I just want you to ask some questions now for the next 5 minutes.
Using reward, when do we talk at the child and praise them and say all of our good job?
Okay, so when do we? So you know what? Showing excitement while the child is having an accomplishment and an epiphany, I think we need to think about how complex our language is at that time, because sometimes it might just be, you know, depending on the child's own sensory processing stuff. But so kids love to know they got it right, and so you're not going to do it every time they're putting in if they already mastered that. But if they open it and then they close it, and then you repeat that action, then that's a really great time to provide reward. Now, the most powerful time to say a word is when the child is looking at the thing that you're trying to label, in the act of doing it, or touching it. So if they're looking at it and touching it, and you say, coin, that's, research shows, that's the time they're going to get it more than if the kid is doing this. Can you hold that a minute? The kid, okay, no, you do this. Okay, can you do that? And you're doing that, and I'm saying, plate. Plate. Not gonna map it. But you know what? We do that sometimes. We do make that mistake. So what would be a better, so if I'm the kid and I'm doing this, what's the word you want to say to me? In. Are you going to say pig right now? You can say in pig soon when you think I'm ready. But if I already know in, then you can say in pig. Okay. Did I answer? Okay. Anybody else have a question? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about using language and getting away from the rigidity that, you know, we sometimes instill in kids?
So it's really important for you to be systematic. In a lot of autism interventions that are on the market, there's no rhyme or reason for how you develop the language system. There's no guidance, you can say whatever you want, or you pick out a word and you drill it. That's not the most optimal way for children to map language. Language is a multimodal event. And so you want them to experience the words, right? So you want to know what's already in the child's lexicon. What words does your child already know? And then what words do you need for your child to know? Okay? So I would make that list. And with an early language learner, I limit myself to 10 words. That's it, that I'm going to teach. I can say other words, but I'm not necessarily going to make the kid, in my head, try to make him learn those words. And I pick nouns. So if I have 10 words, I'm telling you what, this is a really good exercise. If you're only going to teach 10 words, it's almost like you're going on a trip, you're going to Hawaii. You can only put 10 things in your suitcase. What 10 things are you going to pick? You're not taking your boots, I can guarantee you. You are taking your bathing suit, okay? So if I only get 10 words, I'm going to pick those words super carefully. And I have certain criteria that I'm going to choose. One of my top criteria for an early language learner is that I have nouns, verbs, and function words. Another one of my criteria is that some of these words, particularly the verbs and the function words, that includes in, have to be words that this kid is going to be exposed to all day. Some of the words, particularly the nouns, can be routine specific if the kid loves them. Okay, so you don't you can't say for yourself, I am never going to teach pumpkin, because pumpkin's not like a really major vocabulary word for this kid. But around, starting like in September all the way through December, you can talk about pumpkins, because you know what, pumpkins, it's not the pumpkinness that you need the kid to learn, but it's a highly motivating activity, things that you can do with pumpkins. There's so many things you can do with pumpkins. And so you can lay down that original grid work for category formation. So parts of speech that combine well. So if you're going to use the word open, then you need to teach nouns that can be opened, right? Or things that can open. So you just want to think about how build your grammar. So you're not just teaching these words for words' sake. You're teaching them to communicate, form categories, and also to build a flexible linguistic system. Our time's up. So come to our conference in October. We do have a new treatment study starting in, when? June. And it's a randomized controlled trial, and so some children will be randomized to a really super duper parent education condition, and some are going to be assigned to an experimental classroom-based condition that's really targeting social cognition. And this is for 2-year-olds. And it's for 2-year-olds who already have a cognitive level, nonverbal cognitive level of about 18 months or higher. So bear that in mind. It's a 6-month intervention. This is funded by Autism. And there's one other big thing I want to tell you. Oh, we are also recruiting children who have a known diagnosis of ASD. They're 2 to 5 years old, who have not been diagnosed yet, but parents are concerned either about ASD or about developmental delay, and children who seem to be developing in a healthy way, for parents to come and help us validate a new kind of screener for autism. And this is a screener that I developed, and it's a video web-based screener. And so what happens is that if this thing turns out to have validity, parents will be able to sit down in the privacy of their own home, or they can do it in a doctor's waiting room, and they'll watch little video clips that are very brief of a child without autism and a child with autism doing the same play activity. And then my voice explains what to look for. And then at the end of watching the imagination and play section, because there's 5 sections, they answer questions on like a 4-point scale about what their child, on the things that I just described in the video. And so then what we'll do is we'll have parents, first of all, fill out an MChat, which is an autism screener, and a questionnaire that says, are you concerned about your child? And then they take this video-guided parent report screener, and then they answer the question again, do you have any concerns about your child, to see if a new bias emerged after seeing the video. Then they get a Mullen Scales of Early Learning, and they get an Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule. And at the end of a year, my hope is that we get enough kids that we can answer this in 1 year, because I really don't want to delay. If this really works, this is going to help rural America. It's going to help underserved communities. It's going to help all children, because we know that when does it nag you? In the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. It's so hard to even talk about this without tearing up. You get in bed and you worry about your kid. And you know, you have to wait to see your doctor, or if you see your doctor, sometimes they're not sure and they kind of want to wait a little bit. But after all, it is your child, and you really want answers today. This is not going to diagnose a kid. It's just going to give you a risk indicator. And then you can take that information to infants and toddlers or to your doctor and move things along, because we know that early development is the time when things are really moving forward. Now, I'm really sorry I pitched this at sort of the early stages of the play development, but if you guys want, I can give it another workshop on this that's a lot more time, and we can get into imagination in higher, more complex levels. So I'm going to stop because I've already overrun my time. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.